G'day. This week I'm talking about tyre and tyre maintenance. I'll talk about the age of your tyres. Now if they're too old, you definitely need to throw them out. I'll show you how to measure the age of your tyres. I'll also talk about whether you should get, for the caravan, whether you should get standard tyres, light truck tyres, all-terrain or muddies, and I'll also talk about a thing called TPMS, Tyre Pressure Management System. Now you can get cheapies or you can get a good quality one that can actually read both the tow vehicle and the caravan when you're driving down the road. So much to talk about. Let's go. Okay, let's start off the discussion about tyres on the tow vehicle, or in my case it's on the ute. So according to the specifications on the manual of the car, the wheels and the tyres should be a certain specification. And on my car, when you open the driver's door, there you've got a little panel there that's got a little sticker that says what tyre sizes and what wheel sizes you should have. Now I do recommend that you do, before you go and get yourself a new set of tyres or even a single tyre, first of all, if you're going to get a single tyre, make certain it marries into all the others. And I would suggest if you're going to replace one, you at least replace two, because there's no point having a real big meaty tyre and then having, you know, the majority of the others kind of balding. All your good tyres, your best tyres should be on the front. Ideally, you should be rotating your tyres sort of quite constantly, every 5 or 10,000. And yeah, there's no point getting a real meaty one, popping it on the front, and then your driving might be literally all over the road. You will find online, if they're spelling tyres T-I-R-E-S, then the research is coming from America, or certainly not from Australia, because we spell it obviously with the T-Y-R-E-S. Now the thing that's important there is just be careful, their requirements over there are a fair bit different to ours. We tend to have our off-road and just even some of our roads all around Australia can be pretty harsh on tyres. So do your research, pretty much have decided which tyre you're going to get and get some prices, jump online, see what the prices are before you go to the shop. Now the only reason I say that is even as much research as I have done in the past, quite often I'll go in and say, I want a set of blah tyres. And the salesman say, well, yeah, happy to do that, but do you realise that there is a better tyre than that has a long, unbelievable, it lasts for so long, really good, great in the wet, and they'll do the sales pitch. So once you get caught up in that sales pitch, you'll probably drive out with those, so watch out for that. As I say, do your research, be sure what you're going to buy, and just go for it. Now, one of the great hints that's well worth listening to is when you're doing your research on your tyres, make certain you ask a lot of people, ask fellow four-wheel drivers, ask fellow people who tow, and do as much research as you can online. Also check out how well the tyres can run in the wet. You don't want to be having something really, really meaty and then find out it slides all over the place. So you can get different size tyres. Now if you want to want the car to look real sexy, then you get bigger tyres. And just be warned, when I had my Prado 120, I decided to get different size tyres, and the moment I did that, and I'm sure a lot of people got different opinions about this, but I can tell you from experience, the moment I changed the size of my tyres, which wasn't much, my fuel economy just went out the window. It was just shocking. So watch out for that. Now you can get muddies. The thing is with muddies and you know, towing your caravan and all that sort of stuff, talking about the tow vehicle, the thing is with muddies, they're very noisy in the car and they're quite aggressive. So on the highway, they can get end up going quite bald quite quick. So watch out for that. With muddies, they're great if you really are going to do a fair bit of off-road, mud, sand and all that sort of stuff, but you will find the majority of you out there, even if you do a trip around Australia, you won't be, you'll be on the black tar most of the time, so watch out for that. Now most guys and girls, as soon as they get the ute, up she goes. They'll get a suspension kit upgrade. Now you can do it yourself, it's a bit tricky, and a bit time consuming. Otherwise you can do the package, and there's a few companies that'll specialise in that. So what that actually does is it raises the suspension. So imagine you've got your big coil springs on the back. They'll replace them. They're not just pulling it out, they'll replace it. What that does then is it lifts the body. Doesn't change the diff at the bottom, just lifts the body. And at the front, you'll change those shock absorbers. And again, they're different, so it'll raise the height of the front. So what they're doing is they're raising the body only. The other type of way of going up is getting bigger tyres. Now that lifts pretty much most of it, and there's a limit in Australia. Most of the states have all got the same thing. There's a limit of just how high you can, how big the tyres that you put on there, both on front and back. Obviously they'll all be the same, but 35 inch are the ones that they all carry on about. So, oh, I've got 35s, looks like a monster truck. Don't forget, as you're raising it, it does alter the stability of it. 2 inch lift, that's fine, just get used to driving according to it. But once you go to 4 inches and 6 inches, you really are getting to a different, whole different scenario. And the more you go, like the 4 inch and the 6 inch, you may need to change the length of the brake hoses. You may need to recalibrate all sorts of things on the camber, on the caster. And there's a lot of things that probably should be done, and most of the time are. If you don't do those modifications, what tends to happen is you start blowing out CV joints and other things. So just be aware, if you want to do the monster truck look, it could end up costing you, if not initially, or certainly later on, and you might have a few fines in the post or actually on the side of the road, because if you raise it too much, there are laws. Does look good though. If you've seen some of my earlier videos, you will know that I'm just about to head off to America on a fairly long jaunt for 6 months to 9 months, maybe even a year. And I realised I don't have anywhere to store the car on the caravan. Now I'm thinking about selling it, so if anybody's interested, please let me know. Otherwise, if you've got a property where you can help me out and I can store the car in a caravan, preferably in Victoria, preferably reasonably close to Melbourne, that'd be great. Please let me know in the comments below and I'll find a way of getting back to you. Thanks very much. Now I'm sure you would want to check out your the age of your tyre. Just before I go there, the degradation of tyres, just not actually doing anything, just sitting around, mine's in the worst situation because I've got it exposed to the sun, and the sun is pretty aggressive on tyres. So those people, which is most people, who have their cover over it, they might have a rubbish bin there, or they might have an advertisement for the company of the caravan or whatever, they're miles ahead of me. Now to find the date and year and everything, it's a thing here called the dot. I think it's there. Yeah, it's called the DOT, and the last two numbers at the end of that little segment will indicate the month, the week of the manufacture. So if it's say 32/23, that means it was manufactured on the 32nd week of 2023. So, and if you can't find the dot, then turn the tyre around, or if you've got to climb under the van or whatever, look on the other side, it's almost definitely. And if there's no dot, that's probably about 20-25 years old, because the dot was introduced by the Americans, Department of Transport. They introduced that, well, obviously about 15 years ago, so 15-20 years ago. So if you can't find any dot, you just found the numbers, I'd probably go into a tyre place and get them to check it. Don't want to go throwing out tyres when they're still pretty good. TPMS, which I talked about before, now that's a tyre pressure management system. And again, as I said before, you can get the cheapies. The cheapy ones have just got like a little, I think they're about $39 or something. They've got a little thing you put on the windscreen, and then the solar comes down, it charges that thing. You've got your little tyre pressure monitor valve things that you put onto the tyres. And look, I've had 2 sets and both of them end up playing up. So, and these are the little valves that you screw on to the stem of the tyre that comes out. So I won't go through the process, but basically you screw that on. There's got a little locking nut. Hopefully that's going to stop someone from stealing it, but not much point if they steal it and if they haven't got the rest of the system. This particular unit covers the front tyres of the car, well, all the tyres of the car, and the rear on the Caravan as well. You've actually got a little adapter that you stick into the very back of the car that holds that connection basically. And anywho, this is what it looks like, so come and have a look. So that's the unit. Initially it might take, you know, a few minutes before it all gets them all up to square. Now I can actually go backwards, and I'll go back to the first tyre, which is the right hand side front. Then it bounces across automatically. It'll go through to left front and it goes all the way through. Now the important thing to remember all this, and a lot of people don't tend to mention it, when you're talking about tyre pressures, you're usually talking cold. So I run my, here I go on tyre pressures, I'm throwing it out there, I'm putting myself on the line. This is what I do, it's not what I'm suggesting you do, this is what I do, and that's how I get through and get on with my day. So I run the car tyres, or the ute tyres, I run on 40 cold, and I run the Caravan tyres on the same. If I'm driving on sand, I will usually run it on 16. This is all PSI. And deep sand, I might go down to 15. If I'm really, really in trouble, I'll go down to 12. But if you go down that far and you follow my ideas, I'm not telling you what to do, this is what I do. When I got bogged up at Pebbly Beach, I was running on 15, towing the very heavy caravan in deep sand. I got bogged. When I came back over the other way, I ran it at 12, no problem. So that's just what I did. And on gravel and rock, I tend to run it on about 26. So that's my settings. I forgot to mention about the TPMS. I'll just flick it around and just show you a couple of other things. So everything there is registered in PSI, pounds per square inch. I won't, because it'll muck up my whole system and I may forget how to put it back. But you can actually run it in bar, BAR, and bar is another that was actually introduced by a Norwegian guy who was one of the founders of predicting weather. And yeah, so he used the bar. If you wanted to know, just for your own curiosity, to convert bar to PSI, you multiply the bar times 14.5. The figure on the right hand side is the temperature of the tyres. That's really handy to have because that's telling you the temperature of the tyre/wheel. Now, if you keep an eye on it while you're driving and that figure goes up really high, that's an indicator or possible indicator that you've got a problem with the wheel bearings. So that's pretty handy to know that. So yeah, you've got your PSI and your temperature. Both quite good things to have. Now, while I'm on it, it's not to do with the TPMS. It's a good idea, especially since you've got one of these, is to make certain all of the figures are all exactly the same, or at least whatever you set them to. If you're going to have them different figures on the car as opposed to the Caravan, at least keep them consistent. And once they're set, just keep an eye on it, because when they drop down, it's usually, and I've had this before, it usually means you've got either leaking valve or you've got a slow puncture in the tyre, and you definitely want to get onto that. I have got a great little air compressor. Sometimes people will have the air compressors under the bonnet, sometimes they'll carry them like me, or have all sorts of variations on that. The one I've got, which I absolutely love, it's got a little remote control on it, so I can go up, set the tyre, check out the PSI on it, and then with the remote I can start the pump, and then I can stop it and check it, start it, stop it. It's fantastic. The other thing I do once I've got my tyres set, especially with the air compressor, and especially if I've just been off-roading and I'm airing up, then what I'll do is I'll set it via the air compressor. I will then check it with another adapter I've got just to be sure that those PSIs are right. Caravan tyres, are they important? Yeah, they're very important, especially if you're doing any off-road or gravel work or on the sand, the beach work. Because if you're on any of those conditions, you'll probably, almost definitely will be lowering the tyre pressure. So if you're lowering the tyre pressure on the Caravan, then you need good quality tyres. Now some people go to the extreme of putting muddies on it. Normally, I've got my opinion about muddies is if you're doing lots and lots of driving, yeah, fine. But if you're only taking the Caravan out for, a week or, a few days every year, it's probably a little bit over the top. The other thing is, I really don't like muddies if you're on the road a lot because they're very noisy. But as some people say, well, we're in the car, we don't care. So I'd probably recommend all-terrain tyres. And with the all-terrain tyres, when you lower them, you get a better footprint for towing as well. Here's something really to consider. Now, some people will take their Caravan out maybe once or twice or 3 times a year and just take it away for, 3 days here, maybe a week. And because of that, what will happen is all of that weight of the Caravan is sitting in the driveway or in the paddock or wherever it is. And that's a lot of weight to be sitting on it, and it can form a type of flat spot on the tyre. And if you get a flat spot, you really need to pretty much replace the tyres. You can't fix that. So keep an eye out for that. The other and final thing about the Caravan tyres, invariably you may get a flat tyre and you may need to repair it. Now, as soon as you've repaired a tyre, okay, it's fine, it can go on and do the job, but just keep in mind you've now put a weak spot in the wheel, in the tyre, so just be aware of that. If you've got a lot of punctures you repaired on one particular tyre, it might be time to either call it a day or have a tube put inside. Some people will have some opinions about that, but certainly just be aware that tyres are really quite important on the Caravan. If you do decide to make your lift more than 2 inches, just be aware when it gets close to around about 4 inches or 5 or 6, apart from being illegal, put that to one side, you do raise the centre of gravity of the car, and which means it's more prone, especially on severe or extreme four-wheel driving, it's more prone to topple over. And the other thing is you should do a lot of changes on the car if you're going to make a 4 or 6 inch lift, because I don't get in too heavily into the mechanic side of it, but just the way the diffs are within the car, you're putting a lot of strain on them because they're not designed to have that, and the angle might be a little bit weird on the functionality of the car. You'll need to extend the brake hoses. There is lots of things, and it literally, if you do it properly, could cost you quite a few $1,000s. So just be aware, if you do want that monster truck look, you might be put your hand in the pocket for that wallet for a big payment. So yeah, I'm out in the middle of the bush and I stumbled upon this random guy whose name is... I'm Tristan. Tristan. I'm sure he's got a nickname and it's probably rude, so we won't need to talk about that. The reason I wanted to talk to him is the fact that because I'm talking about tyres and about lifts, he has got a lift more than 2 inches, but as I also mentioned, it's a good idea if you're going to do that to make some modifications to the unit itself. And he's already talking about drop boxes and things like that. I have no idea what he's talking about, so let's see if we can find out. So you were saying once it goes over 2 inches?
Once you go over 2 inches, in patrols especially, you've got to run a drop box. It drops the radius arms down about 30 mil so it can align the diffs.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
And in Land Cruisers like the A series over there, you don't have to run drop boxes because they run it on a pivoting bolt, but you've got to put sway bar extensions and stuff like that to run a big lift.
Okay.
And you've got to run your extended brake lines and stuff like that as well, so you don't snap them when you go out flexing or hardcore forward driving.
And is that because if you don't, you start snapping CV joints? And
with these, they don't have CVs as such. They're inbuilt into the solid front ends. But when you've got your Tritons and your Hiluxes, it's when the diff isn't low enough. It puts on the CVs on a really harsh angle, and that's how they snap. So
Okay.
CVs are going to be trying to be as flat as possible at all times.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just drive them and don't even do a particularly great job of that. So is there any other major thing you've got to do apart from the brake lines and that drop box on this particular unit?
No, then you just got to run the right spring for like your weight. So if you're running bull bar, winch, dual battery system, you got to run a more heavier spring to compensate for the weight. Because if you don't, you put in a standard spring, it'll just sag straight away.
Yeah, okay. Do they sag anyway after a few years?
Generally, after about 3 to 4 years, they generally start to sag out. But then by then, you've probably found something later and greater and replace it anyway.
Okay. At the beginning of the video, I talked about if your tyres are too old, they could be extremely dangerous and you might have a major accident. Now sadly, Paul Weller, the famous American actor, when he died in his car accident, the cause was the fact that the tyres were too old. The car, which was in immaculate condition, had been sitting around for a long time, hadn't been used for a certain period of time, and that was a high performance car, but still the argument stays the same. And sadly he lost his life because those tyres were too old. So what's too old? 5 years, they say, that's what the tyre people will tell you, but I personally think that's just a bit of a sales pitch. But certainly 10 years is the absolute limit. Any tyre that's older than 10 years, definitely throw it out. Now, if you found the video useful, helpful and or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, I'm sure one day you will. And if you think the video is worth sharing, I'd appreciate it. Until next time, this is Paul Will Drive, signing off.